Have you ever been accused of doing something only to realize the person accusing you is the one who's actually guilty of it? It's a seriously confusing and powerful tactic, and you see it everywhere, from personal relationships all the way up to global politics. So today, we're going to break down this psychological trick and see how it gets turned into a weapon. You know, this quote right here, it just nails it. It gets to the very heart of what we're talking about. The idea that sometimes the loudest accusation isn't about you at all. Nope. It's a broadcast of what's going on inside the accuser's own head. It's a pretty wild and honestly unsettling concept.
So what's actually going on in someone's head when they do this? Well, it all starts with a very common, very human defense mechanism.
Okay, so at its most basic, psychological projection is how our brains protect us from feelings that are just too tough to handle. It's like your brain is playing hot potato with a bad feeling. Instead of saying, I feel guilty, your mind just goes, nope, you're the guilty one. It's an unconscious way to offload all that junk onto someone else.
Right. And this is where it all takes a much darker turn, because we're moving away from a simple, unconscious habit and stepping right into the world of deliberate and often really malicious manipulation. Let's dig into the blueprint here and see how this basic reflex can get supercharged into something way more intense, a much more active and complex way to manipulate someone. So think of this as projection with like an aggressive upgrade. It's not enough for them to just think you're the guilty one. They will actively try to provoke you, to push your buttons, to get you to lash out until you actually act guilty. They're trying to make their twisted version of reality come true by messing with your behavior. And this quote from psychiatrist R.D. Laing, wow, it just spells it out perfectly. He's saying it's not a passive thing, it's an active strategy. The whole goal is to turn the other person into a living, breathing container for all the ugly feelings the projector just can't face in themselves. And this slide really puts it all into perspective, doesn't it? Projection is a thought. Projective identification is an action. It's a way to not only get rid of a bad feeling, but to get proof, to get validation that you were right to feel it. And our sources point out this is a go-to move for narcissists, letting them hide their own guilt and just blur the lines between what they've done and what you've done.
So we've seen how this works one-on-one, but what happens when you scale it up? When it's not just one person, but an entire group or even a government using it as a deliberate strategy? Well, that's when it really becomes a weapon.
And this is the main event for today. It's called accusation in a mirror. It takes that personal psychological quirk and turns it into a calculated tool for propaganda. You accuse your enemy of planning to do the exact terrible thing that you are in fact planning to do to them. And here's the really sneaky part. The whole point is to reframe your own attack as self-defense. By painting the other side as the aggressor, you make your own planned violence look like a preemptive, defensive, even heroic act. Suddenly, violence doesn't just seem okay, it seems absolutely necessary. And if you think this is all just some abstract theory, well, check this out. This line is from an actual propaganda manual found in Rwanda. It's not a theory, it's a playbook. A chillingly clear instruction on how to weaponize accusations to pave the way for something horrific. All right, so let's look at how this devastatingly effective technique has actually been used, drawing straight from the historical accounts in our source material. The historical record here is, well, it's pretty dark. Back in the 1930s, the Nazis accused Jewish people of plotting to destroy the German people, a perfect mirror image of their own horrific plans. Then, in 1994 in Rwanda, Hutu extremists claimed the Tutsi minority was about to commit genocide, which they used to justify their own. The pattern is just tragically consistent across so many conflicts. Okay, so to bring this into a more modern context, we're going to look at some examples that come straight from our primary source. And it's really important to state that we are presenting this information exactly as it's reported in the source material, just to illustrate the concept. All right, so looking at the slide, the source material points to two examples. First, it states that Donald Trump accused Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook of mortgage fraud, and the source provides the context that he himself had been found liable for financial fraud. Second, it reports that Trump claimed the Epstein files were fabricated by political opponents, and the context given is that the federal investigation into Epstein actually took place during his own presidency, under his own Justice Department. Okay, so we've seen how this plays out on the world stage. Let's bring it back down to a more personal level. How can you spot this tactic in your own life? And maybe more importantly, how do you deal with it? Accusation in a mirror rarely travels alone. It's usually part of a whole manipulator's toolkit. It hangs out with things like DARVO, that's deny, attack, and reverse victim and offender. And of course, its close cousins, gaslighting, whataboutism, and playing the victim.
But here's the really good news, and this is why this stuff matters. Research shows that just understanding these tactics, just learning what they are, even from watching an explainer like this, can seriously reduce their power over you. Seriously. Awareness is your first and most powerful line of defense.
So, what can you actually do? Well, research on this stuff in the workplace points to 4 key steps. Number 1, self-awareness. Just recognizing, hey, this isn't about me, this is projection. Next, you have to set firm boundaries about what is and isn't okay. Then, it is so crucial to get support. Talk to HR, a manager you trust, somebody. And finally, if it feels safe and appropriate, you might calmly and directly confront the behavior.
So we'll leave you with this one final thought to chew on. The next time you see a really intense accusation, doesn't matter if it's in a news headline, a work meeting, or a personal argument, just pause for a second. Ask yourself, is the real story about the person being pointed at, or is it about the person who's doing the pointing?